behind every great entrepreneur, there's capital. Without capital, 99% of them wouldn't be able to do what they do. The lesson is, I don't care if you're Elon or less talented than Elon, money talks, bullshit walks. You need to stop lying to yourself about business. The truth is, capital decides if you're in business because capital give you connections. They're selling you a dream that's making you think delusional and it's messing up the way you're approaching entrepreneurship. And that includes me too. I'm talking to myself when I speak to the camera. I want to say something about this country, the United States. And I think that a lot of this country is about smoke and mirrors. They teach you a lot of these ideals that are sold to you just simply not true. I was looking up Elon Musk's history. And I looked at the first company that he started, which was Zip2, when he was in Silicon Valley. And Zip2 essentially was a kind of a classified directory early on when internet was kicking off. And I start to realize that a lot of Elon Musk's companies, he's never actually early on built a company that made any money and ran the company. And I start to realize you're starting to see these stories where America is selling you this ideal that these great entrepreneurs are bootstrapping businesses, running them, making money, growing them, and then selling them. But most of the billionaires and people that they brag about are actually just benefiting from capital allocators and being around the right people. For instance, Elon Musk basically made kind of this classified website. Really, they were able to convince a couple small businesses for the most part. Zip2, which was this kind of internet directory, never made any money. He was unable to actually grow the business, run it, and make any significant revenue. Early on, like 3 or 4 months into the business, what Elon Musk did was he created the concept, the ideal, because he's really good at selling, marketing, and generating prototypes. And he found an investor who gave him $3 million. Only then, when that investor gave him $3 million, he replaced Elon, right, from a CEO and made him a CTO. And basically, he turned it into software, which he sold in newspapers. And then they eventually had an exit for $3 million. I mean, $300 million. And as a result of him, Elon being part of that, he was given $21 million. Okay. So early on, Elon, I want you to see the pattern, never actually built a company and ran it with no money, right? It was basically a prototype business. He's a smart guy. I'm not saying he's not smart and talented. This is not what the point of this is. This is not about bashing Elon. It's about giving people a cold hard reality about entrepreneurship and business and not buying into the myths of these people like Elon, Mark Cuban. Most businesses of a lot of these popular people that are cult figures in entrepreneurship and business, these businesses didn't go on to do anything. Larger companies acquired these businesses as a growth strategy, either to get the talent or get their customer base. But a lot of these businesses are unproven and their entire strategy is to make a business and get acquired by a larger company, right? So Compaq bought this business, right, from one of the investor who replaced Elon with a CEO, older guy who knew what they're doing. And that's what they do in the 90s. They believe that, experience mattered. This is prior to the internet revolution and Mark Zuckerberg. He ushered in, keep the young founder generation, right? But prior to that, even when Apple Computer, early on, they went and got, I think, a Pepsi Cola exec to run the business. That's how you got money from the older generation who wanted to invest in your companies. They wanted to see senior management that knew what they were doing. Post Mark Zuckerberg, that was like the official kicking in of the era of using the young founder to take you the long way because it's technology. Young people use technology. They wanted you to be seen as hip. They wanted to make sure that they understood the fast changing technology. And so they would, basically lean toward younger founders. Prior to that, you had institutionalized physical infrastructure businesses that they wanted experience with, that they can understand, and they used experienced investors to do that. But let me get back to the point. Elon Musk early on made Zip2. It's a classified ad website, similar to you can kind of say maybe it's like Craigslist before Craigslist. So, if you're a newspaper and you had like classified ads and things like that would be in the physical paper, he was basically taking a newspaper and putting it online where they can have different sections and people could read stuff, and you could have, like the green sheet and things for sale and things like that. Anyways, the business never made any money. He didn't run it long enough to even prove that he can make money. He didn't have to run it with no money to prove that he could bootstrap a business for nothing. And this is the most important part I want to make. And it's not that I'm complaining and saying that nobody has bootstrap businesses, but if you're a poor minority, but you don't even have to be a minority, just somebody with no money, no connections, you're not in Silicon Valley, you're not an engineer, your life is difficult, you have to work every day. Like, they're selling you myths about the greatness of entrepreneurs when behind every great entrepreneur, there's capital. Without the capital, 99% of them wouldn't be able to do what they do. And I think this is the most important part that the internet cult following misrepresents. Like even Mark Zuckerberg, right? He made a prototype. He didn't validate anything. He didn't run that business and get 1 million users with no money. Early on, through that prototype, he was backed by money. And that money allowed everything else. Like, you cannot understate this. So back to Elon. He was a part of the exit. Experienced entrepreneur, put $3 million. Only when he got the $3 million investment into Zip2 did the business take off. He was able to do proper marketing, and he had a professional exec who had connections. He was in Silicon Valley. And so this executive was able to actually facilitate the relationships to reach out to newspapers to sell this software. And then, the rest is history. They had an exit. Compaq bought the company for $300 million. Elon Musk had a stake in the company, ended up with $21 million. At this point, Elon got money. Now let's look at the next thing he did. The next thing he did was started X.com. He founded it, I think, around 1999. The company operated for 3 or 4 months, never made any money. When he founded X.com, incorporated it, it literally had $0 of revenue. Now, he did get 200,000 users, but those users didn't pay any money for the software. They just signed up for X.com. X.com is essentially like what PayPal was, or what PayPal is. But it was in the early days, there were 2 companies competing. There was what became PayPal, and then there's X.com. These are 2 separate companies. So this is a lot of misrepresentation. Elon did not start PayPal. Elon started a competitor with PayPal. So PayPal existed. It was a different name, and X.com. They both knew the space was going to be big. So Elon started. Remember, he has $21 million now from a company that he started with a prototype that he never ran. He never made money. And it wasn't until he got a $3 million investment did the company start being successful. This is not to knock Elon. It's just to show you, even if you're Elon, most of those businesses are not going to be successful without money. This is the part that everybody leaves out. All these entrepreneurs, they only want to talk about how they built this ideal and how they found this market. But none of them really are able to go anywhere with these ideals without capital. Elon, a trillionaire right now, was not able to make any significant money with Zip.com until he got a $3 million investment. Then he was able to grow it. And even then he didn't do it himself because he had a professional investor and a older CEO who already had connections in Silicon Valley, where there's a whole bunch of people that really did the heavy lifting and got the software into a newspaper. Only when he got that $20 million, he was set up to do stuff now, right? He's already a talented entrepreneur. He's already motivated. He already has skills. But now he has $21 million. Can you start a company if you already have $21 million? We're in the AI age right now. Can you spin up your software project right now with $21 million if you're an entrepreneur? Why would you waste all your hours no coding or vibe coding an app if you have $21 million? It's about your ideal and execution. If you have $21 million right now, like Elon, right? You'll be able right now to go find a developer, pay him $50,000. He can use no code tools and he can make anything you want. And you can spend all your time on the real skill, understanding the marketing, understanding the business, understanding where it's going, understanding how to sell the vision to investors and people who are going to use your product. That is the real skill of an entrepreneur, not spending all their time hitting keyboard, doing all the grunt work, right? That's what Elon was allowed to do early on in his life before he was even 22. He got $21 million and he starts X.com. And even with $21 million, he didn't actually run the business very long before merging with PayPal. And only when he merged against PayPal, again, he wasn't allowed to be CEO. He was pushed to the side. And then they were bought by eBay for $1.5 billion. As a result, Elon goes from 21 million to almost 200 or 300 million. Every single step of the way, he didn't run any companies early on. When he was broke, he didn't run any company. Even when he had $21 million, started X.com, he ran the business for less than a year before he merged with another company. The competition basically merged with them, and they brought in professional people who had more capital. Now, at the time, Elon had more capital than what became PayPal because he had $21 million from his last deal. So what is the lesson? The lesson is, I don't care if you're Elon or less talented than Elon, money talks, bullshit walks. It was the money that allowed him to execute on those ideals. Without the money, even Elon Musk would have been toiling away for years trying to prove himself. This is the thing that no one's telling you. And we created a Mark Zuckerberg culture that makes it seems like, oh, on the internet, you can make an app or some software or a solution and you can go get hundreds of millions of dollars of customers. And then after making hundreds of millions of dollars, a company can acquire you and then you can cash out with a large exit. Most of the time, that's not what happens. Most of the time, some kid who's motivated, who has energy, comes up with an ideal, makes it where it proves the concept. And then, you know what they don't do? Spend the next 5-10 years running it, proving themselves, building up a real business, fighting through customers with no money, acquiring customers with no money, proving themselves, making $3, $4, $5, $10 million a year, and then getting an investor. You know what most of them do? A year into the business, 2 years into the business, they get enough traction to show that it's a real business, and some guy go invest and give them $3 million, $5 million, $10 million. And only then do the business scales and take off. So the truth is, this country is still ran by capital. And you need to stop lying to yourself about business. The truth is, capital decides if you're in business because capital gives you connections to get the customer, to buy the ads, to scale the business. And without it, no matter how talented you are, most of the time, you're not going to toil away. If you look at the stories consistently, Elon built a Zip2, didn't actually run the business. That business didn't make any money at all without that $3 million investment. Only then, and it still didn't make any money because it was bought by Compaq for $300 million. It never produced anywhere near $300 million. Nothing came of Zip2. And most of these companies that these entrepreneurs are creating, and they're having exits for 100 million, 200 million, those businesses, 90% of them fail. Most of the time, these companies are just doing growth by acquisition. They're buying these companies to buy the infrastructure. Maybe they want access to the entrepreneur. Maybe they just want a story and to acquire their customer base. But I would say the vast majority of those acquisitions don't make these companies money. It's like their marketing budget to basically experiment. And so a lot of time, you're as an entrepreneur, you get touted as this great business person because your company got acquired, but nothing came of your company. Same thing with Mark Cuban, right? He built broadcast.com. It got acquired by Yahoo. They don't even use his technology. Like that business probably was scrapped in 3 years. But he has this folk story, and I'm not knocking Mark. I like Mark Cuban. But he gets folk storied by other people. I'm not going to attack Mark. I don't know him personally. And I'm not saying he's not talented. What I'm saying to everybody else is this country is a giant sales machine and it's lying to you about your heroes. Not because they're not talented, but they're not superheroes. It is capital that's making them superheroes. If you already, what Elon's actually good at, let's look at the pattern of what Elon constantly does. Elon is a great vision seller. who can get capital from people, whether it's the public in the public markets or an investor. Zip2 didn't prove anything, didn't make any money, not a transformative technology, got somebody to give them $3 million, right? Then they got it to a point where they were able to sell it to some people, still didn't operate the business and make a lot of money, was able to get Compaq to buy it for $300 million. Took $21 million, started X.com, ran it for 3-4 months, never made any money, merged with PayPal, got ousted as this potential CEO in PayPal, pushed aside. They sold it to eBay, $300 million. None of those businesses made money while Elon was there because they were early and he moved on. Now he got $300 million, start SpaceX and Tesla, and so on and so forth. And even if you look at Tesla, ran it for like 10 years, didn't make any money. Took like 20 years to be profitable. Still, overall, doesn't make any money compared to its valuation. Worth what, $1 trillion, $2 trillion, maybe $1 trillion for a company that produces $30 billion. SpaceX been around for 24 years. Throughout its entire inception, never made more than $100 billion in profit. And it's been around for 24 years, SpaceX. Yet he was able to take it public for $1 trillion. Marketing, sales, selling vision. But the actual companies haven't produced the revenue. Elon's been around for 24 years. He got like 5 companies. None of them have produced any scalable revenue to that level to justify it. If you look at it, its valuation of X or SpaceX is $2 trillion, probably be $3 trillion. None of his companies in the next 20 years are going to produce $3 trillion. Let's just be real. I'm talking about the current companies that he has. So the reality is, what I'm realizing is you need capital to do stuff in this country. And it's about to get worse now with AI because the ability to produce and the production requirements of a company today, especially as a technology company, is going to be high. Everything's going to be advanced, high technology. It's going to be systems built on top of systems, black boxes running the most important parts of your infrastructure that you don't even understand. So every other company that's not Google, that's not Meta, that's not X, that's building the language models are going to be running and depending their entire companies on black box AI language models that they don't understand. And their whole business is going to be built on this stuff. And so when I really look at this country and I look at the stories that are being told, they're lies in the sense that they're misrepresenting why these people are successful. Is Elon talented? Yes, we know that. I'm not here. These are non-starters. It's irrelevant. What's relevant is the story that they're telling you and you're believing. You need money, not because you can't do it, not because you're making excuses, but that's how the world actually works. I just told you the majority of companies that are acquired from people who haven't actually proved anything. In the sense that most of these people who are getting their companies acquired, not all, but a significant portion of them, especially the ones that are in the media, Mark Cuban and the rest of these guys, haven't ran these companies. They just did just enough to prove the concept and have the right marketing for people to buy them. And those companies, 90% of them don't go on to do anything. Their core infrastructure gets scrapped. David Sachs was part of Yammer. Yammer probably became Teams. A lot of that crap was probably scrapped. They acquired it because they knew there was an industry they needed to be in. They wanted to feel like they're doing something. They bought the company, made them rich. The rest is history. All of these guys are only in the game because they had a liquidity event. What does that tell you if you're an average guy? It's not that you don't have what it takes. You've tried. You're not done trying. But it is capital that changes the game for you. All these guys you see on the All In podcast, a lot of them lucked out. They're lived in Silicon Valley. That's number one. Are you in the right place at the right time? Right place at the right time while still young and ambitious, right? I'm 39 now. I'm in freaking Houston, Texas. Okay. So the reality is there's a lot of luck that plays in part. When I say luck, I'm not talking about you don't get to work hard. I'm not talking about you get to make excuses and not do anything. I'm not talking about that. So anybody in the comments that's going to jump to that crap, what I'm saying, luck in the sense that these are unplanned structural realities that play into the probability that it's going to be you. If you're 19 or 20 and you happen to live in Silicon Valley and you happen to live next to a university right when the internet boom is happening and you're motivated and you try to start a company, the probability that something might pop off for you is way higher than that same 19-year-old kid who's motivated to do the same thing during the dot-com boom who's living in Houston, Texas. That's my point. It's luck in the sense that that kid happened to be in the right place at the right time, also while being motivated and willing to do things. So I'm not saying it's luck, meaning you can sit around and do nothing and complain about it's all luck. No, but capital underpins all this stuff. And I think that we need to stop lying to ourselves about that. It's about to get worse with AI because AI is about to commoditize all of that opportunity you saw most of these entrepreneurs. Let's look at what Elon did. Let's look at what broadcast.com did. They didn't go when they're 20 years old and build out a 500 square feet warehouse and get it constructed. You know how hard it is for you to get the capital to build an entire warehouse if you're 21 years old? To prove that it's worth putting money in that and building the structure, hiring an entire construction team and build it? No, they built internet companies where you can spin up one website and serve millions of people from that one website. That's called scalability and leverage. They got rich because the internet age allowed you to build something very small, a website where millions of people can go there, attention, and you can get paid as the owner. We're moving away from that age right now. We're moving into the physical infrastructure age because once they commoditize intelligence, where it's basically inside of the major three platforms, language models and training models. At that point, they're going to look outward. They're going to start putting that intelligence into machines, which is going to create automation. That automation is going to create manufacturing. Manufacturing is going to be completely automated by machines. And as a result, the output is going to be basically most manufacturing plants are going to become data centers in the sense that data center processes trillions of transactions and commands every single day, but they only need 30 people to run it. Same thing in the future of manufacturing. Instead of having 40,000 employees at Foxconn, they'll have 5,000, and their job is just to manage the machines. And so the reality is you need to look at these people's story and look at the parts that they look over. You're going to find the same pattern in almost every famous entrepreneur. None of them actually built these businesses without significant capital investment. Microsoft, Apple, none of them, he didn't build Microsoft, the company, and then like run it for 10 years with no money, slowly bootstrapping it, slowly getting customers. No, he built the concept. Got one customer. His mom knew somebody at IBM. They introduced him to somebody else and they got a contract by a major player who made them rich overnight. And then only then with all that capital, they went out and built Microsoft. Same thing with Apple. He built a prototype computer, got a couple orders at a computer store until somebody came in and gave him an investment. It turned into a real company. It's a lie that they're building a company, running it, scaling it, making a significant amount of money, toiling for 5 or 10 years, and then getting their first investment. No, every single one of them got a significant capital investment for that business to actually take off or even survive long enough to be a business. That's the cold, hard reality. None of them ran those businesses past 3 years by themselves before they got some type of investment, whether it's $1 million, $3 million, $10 million, every single one of them. Google, all of them. You are 90% unlikely, most of them are not going to become a scaled business without capital. Maybe you'll make a lifestyle business where you make $100,000 a year, but even then you might spend 5 years getting it to that point, right? Now, I know that we're in this little internet age where you got people essentially have YouTube channels. They're benefiting from probably 10 years of or 5 years of running their YouTube channel, and then they can launch a business and make, $10 million or $1 million in a month, 8 months, a year, right? But that's after 5 years of toiling away at getting their YouTube channel to a certain place, or they do a partnership with somebody who spent 8 years or 9 years building up a YouTube channel, right? And then they would say, oh, look, I launched this software product and I made $1 million in a year, or $3 million. Yeah, but you're not telling them about the fact that you partner with some other guy who spent 8 years building up their YouTube channel to do that. None of this stuff, that's a form of capital. None of this stuff is done the way it's being sold. Every single and successful person who's readily on the internet pitching crap, like Alex Hermasi, they leave out the most important parts every single time. They skip over the stuff that make them look less like a genius. Oh, somebody backed me up. My parents were already in the business and I was able to work on a project for 3 years and not have to pay rent or have any pressure whatsoever. And then even then, somebody gave me $400,000 to get it off the ground. So I wasn't bootstrapping this, right? That's not a bootstrap. Like, okay, I'll give you an example. Jeff Bezos, right? He made Amazon. Super talented entrepreneur. Not have nothing negative to say about him. But let's be real here. He started a software company, right? At the time, it's just a single website that sell a book. That's not hard in a sense to make as a physical product. But while he's making that product, right, just the one website, this is before he added all that other stuff. He had $300,000 ultimately he got from his parents and a couple investors to do this. Now, back then, $300,000 is a lot of money to just make a single website that you're going to put books on. This is before it starts scaling, right? That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money to know that you can buy the servers, you can buy your own office, you can buy the computers. It's enough money to bring other people on board. Like, none of this stuff is being done without capital. And that's the thing that regular people need to understand. Like, you need to reorientate yourself to this, because that is the entry point to do the basic stuff that they did. Even if you build these products, like today, you can go build anything with vibe coding right now, but do you have $2 or $3 or $4 or $5 million to buy ads for the next year or two to see if you can even prove that this can work? Because that's what you need to do. You can build anything you want right now. They don't change the fact you're gonna have to spend $5-10 million to buy enough ads to try to prove the market. Because remember, you're on a runway. You're burning capital to see if people want your product. Every dollar you spend for marketing, you have to bring them in, see if they'll use your product for free, see if you can get them to use it long enough to start paying, and see if they can stay on that subscription long enough for you to make your money back. All of it's controlled by people who have capital. And it's only getting worse. So what is the takeaway? My takeaway when it comes to all this is they're selling you a dream that's making you think delusional, and it's messing up the way you're approaching entrepreneurship. And that includes me too. I'm talking to myself when I speak to the camera. It's misleading you on what's possible and how it's possible. And it's also making you have a misconception about how great these other people are. You're overestimating how great Elon and Mark Cuban is. And the reason that's important is because if you're overestimating how great they are, you're underestimating how great you are. You're thinking, man, I'm not as good as them. There's something special about them. No, it's not. Capital is what's special about them. I'm not saying that anybody with no talent, no skill, no passion, you can just give them capital and they can be just as successful. I'm saying that you probably do have skill. You probably do have passion, but what you don't have is the safety net, the capital, the ability to do these things. So my thing to you is, this does not mean you don't get to do it. This means that you need to reorientate your mind around how the world works. So when you approach your next thing, you understand the real game that you're in. That's it. All I'm saying. I'm not saying you get to make an excuse and not go after your dreams. You get to make an excuse and say they're just lucky. No, I'm simply saying that you have to remove the delusion. It's okay to be ambitious. It's okay to have dreams, but it's the delusion that's keeping you stuck. because you're not seeing the world for how it actually is. And that's the problem.